Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be exploring the world of Studio Ghibli. More specifically, we're diving into Roger Ebert's take on Spirited Away.
Ah, yes, Spirited Away.
Oh, this is going to be fun.
Yeah, this review, it's not like your typical, thumbs up, thumbs down kind of thing. It's
Yeah,
really more of an exploration of what makes this film so special.
it really is. He goes way beyond just saying, I like it or I didn't like it. He gets into like what makes this film a masterpiece. And I think he gives us some really interesting insights into like how Miyazaki works and thinks about animation.
Yeah, and one of the things that really jumped out at me was this idea of like generosity in Miyazaki's animation. Like Ebert uses the bathhouse scene as an example, and he talks about how even the background characters are so meticulously animated.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
He even mentions like a hopping light pole.
I know, right? A
Yeah.
hopping light pole, like who thinks of that? But
Yeah.
it's those little details that really make the film so immersive. Exactly. It all goes back to this idea that Miyazaki's creating a world, a believable world, and every detail matters. Even the things that you might not even notice consciously, they contribute to that overall feeling of immersion. He doesn't want anything to feel out of place or fake.
Yeah. So it's not just about making things look pretty. It's about making them feel real, even in a fantastical setting like this.
Absolutely. And that's a big part of why he prefers hand-drawn animation, He believes that starting with the human hand, that physical connection, it gives the film a certain warmth and organic quality that's sometimes missing from computer animation.
Interesting. So you've got this incredibly detailed world, but then you have this story. And the story itself is not your typical fairy tale, especially when it comes to Chihiro's parents.
Oh, yeah. I mean, how often do you see animated film parents who are actually flawed? Like, they're kind of selfish, they're a little oblivious, and then bam, they turned into pigs.
Talk about unconventional parenting, right?
Right. It's definitely not your typical Disney approach.
No, not at all. It sets a much darker and more complex tone for the film, almost like a wake-up call to the audience.
Yeah.
Like, hey, this isn't just a cute kids movie.
Yeah, it's Miyazaki saying, I trust my audience, young and old, to handle, complex emotions, challenging situations.
And then you've got the bathhouse itself and all these incredible characters. Yubaba the witch who runs the place. No Face, this mysterious spirit. The colluded river spirit. It's just mind-blowing how creative and varied these characters are.
It really is. And it's not just the main characters, even the ones who only appear for a few moments. They feel so distinct and so well realized. It's like Miyazaki and his team put thought into every single being that inhabits this world.
It's amazing. And Ebert points out that the film was made for 10-year-old girls, but he also says that it resonates really deeply with adults. What do you think he's getting at there?
I think it speaks to Miyazaki's philosophy of not trying to please everyone. He creates a world that's specific, it's detailed, it's true to his vision, and he trusts that the right audience will find it no matter their age.
I love that there's this quote from Miyazaki that I found so intriguing. He talks about gratuitous motion in animation.
Oh, yeah. He's actually really cautious about that. He believes that sometimes it's the emptiness, the pauses, the silence, what he calls ma, that actually allows the emotions to breathe and resonate with the audience.
Hold on, Ma. You're going to have to explain that one to me. It sounds almost counterintuitive, especially animation.
Well, ma is this fascinating concept. It's really central to Japanese art and aesthetics. It's about the space between things, the silence between the notes, the pause before a brushstroke. And Miyazaki's basically saying that this emptiness is just as important as the action, the dialogue, the visuals. It gives the audience space to breathe, to reflect, to connect with the story on a deeper level.
Okay, I'm starting to see what he's getting at. It's not about cramming every frame with action. It's about creating a rhythm and a flow that pulls you in and makes you feel something.
Exactly. And he contrasts this with what he sees as the busyness of a lot of American animation, where there's this constant need to fill every moment with action and stimulation.
So he's almost saying that this constant bombardment can actually work against the story. It's like trying to drink from a fire hose.
Right, exactly. And, it makes you think about how we consume media these days and
Yeah.
even how we live our lives. Are we so used to being bombarded with information that we've lost the ability to appreciate stillness and silence?
That is a really thought-provoking question. And speaking of thought-provoking, there's this other quote from Miyazaki where he describes his work as a tiny dot in the corner of this vast world of animation.
I love that quote. It's so humble, especially considering how globally acclaimed he is.
I know, right?
It really speaks to his character, I think. He's dedicated to his craft, to a specific style, and he recognizes that there's always more to learn and more to explore. It's not about being the biggest or the loudest. It's about being true to yourself and your vision. And I think that's a big part of what makes Spirited Away so special.
Absolutely. And speaking of special, This film was a box office phenomenon, and it wasn't just in Japan. It resonated with audiences worldwide.
It really shows that there's something about this film, about Miyazaki's storytelling, that transcends cultural boundaries and connects with people on a deeper level.
Yeah, definitely something worth exploring further.
I am so with you on that. Let's take a closer look at some of these characters because they're such a unique mix of the whimsical and the menacing and spirited away. It's not all sunshine and rainbows, is it?
Not at all. And that's what makes it so compelling. Take No Face, for instance.
Mm.
He's so interesting. He's capable of both great kindness and terrifying destruction.
Hmm.
There's a real ambiguity to him.
It's almost like he's a mirror reflecting the desires and intentions of those around him, right? Which
Mhm.
kind of brings us back to Ma, the emptiness that Miyazaki talks about.
Mhm.
It seems like No Face almost embodies that emptiness in a way.
That's a really fascinating observation. You could say that he represents the potential for both good and bad, just waiting to be filled by external forces. And think about how he moves, too, often just gliding silently through the bathhouse. It creates this unsettling, almost ethereal presence. Yeah, it's like he exists on the edge of perception, always there, but never fully grasped, which is so different from Yubaba. She's this larger-than-life in-your-face character, all about excess and control.
It is a brilliant contrast, isn't it? You have this embodiment of emptiness and No Face, and then this figure of almost grotesque excess in Yubaba, and yet even she has these moments of vulnerability, particularly when it comes to her giant baby.
Yeah, it's like Miyazaki is saying that even the most outwardly powerful characters have their weaknesses, their hidden depths. It makes them feel more real, more human, even if they're witches or spirits.
Exactly. And those complexities are a big part of what makes these characters so memorable. They're not just one-dimensional villains or heroes. They're multifaceted beings with their own motivations and desires.
Okay, so we talked about Ma in a general sense, but I'm curious to see how it actually plays out in specific scenes. Can you give us an example of how Miyazaki uses Ma to create like a powerful emotional impact?
Sure. Think about the scene where Chihiro first arrives at the bathhouse. She's just seen her parents transformed into pigs. She's surrounded by these strange creatures, and she's utterly terrified. And as she wanders through this bustling bathhouse, completely overwhelmed, there's this moment where she just stops and stares out the window at the ocean.
I remember that scene. It's so quiet, almost peaceful in contrast to the chaos of the bathhouse.
Exactly. And that's the power of Ma. It's like a visual sigh, a moment of reflection amidst the chaos. And it allows us, the audience, to really connect with Chihiro's feelings of isolation and uncertainty.
It's like those moments of emptiness actually make the story feel more full, more emotionally resonant.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not just in that one scene. Miyazaki uses Ma throughout the film, sometimes in very subtle ways, like a character will pause before speaking, or the camera will linger on an empty landscape. And these seemingly small moments, they create breathing room for the audience space to absorb what they're seeing and feeling.
It's almost like a form of visual poetry, using silence and stillness to create this powerful impact. It makes me think about how we often rush through life, constantly bombarded by information and stimulation.
It's true, isn't it? We're so used to constant noise and activity that we've almost forgotten the power of silence, of stillness.
Maybe we could all benefit from embracing a little bit of Ma in our own lives, Create some space for reflection, for simply being. It's like Miyazaki is offering us a different way of seeing, a different way of being in the world.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And I think it's one of the reasons why Spirited Away resonates so deeply with people of all ages and cultures. It speaks to something fundamental about the human experience, this need for both connection and solitude, for both action and contemplation.
So for someone who hasn't seen Spirited Away yet, what would you say are the key things to look out for?
Well, I'd say first and foremost, just allow yourself to be immersed in the world of the film. Pay attention to the incredible detail in the animation, the unique and unforgettable characters, and the emotional depth of the story. Don't try to analyze everything. Just let the film wash over you.
And don't forget those moments of Ma, those quiet spaces that allow the film to breathe and resonate with such power.
Absolutely. But I think it's also worth paying attention to the film's themes, which are surprisingly complex and layered. It's not just a children's film. There's a lot there for adults to grapple with as well.
Like what, for example?
Well, there's the theme of environmentalism, for one. The polluted river spirit is a powerful symbol of the damage we inflict on the natural world. And there's this idea of finding your own identity, even when you're surrounded by forces that are trying to control you.
Chihiro goes through such an incredible transformation, doesn't she? She starts out as this timid, scared little girl. But by the end of the film, she's strong and resourceful and capable of standing up for herself and those she cares about.
Her journey is ultimately one of self-discovery and empowerment. She learns to navigate a complex and often dangerous world. And in doing so, she discovers her own inner strength and resilience.
It's a story that resonates on so many levels.
Yeah.
And it's a testament to Miyazaki's ability to create characters and stories that are both entertaining and thought-provoking.
Precisely. And it's worth noting that despite its critical and commercial success, Spirited Away remains a distinctly personal film for Miyazaki.
You can really feel it in every frame, his passion, his vision.
Yeah, and he's not afraid to take risks, to experiment with different styles and techniques. He's always kind of pushing the boundaries of what animation can be.
I think that's why his films feel so different, so captivating. They're not just cartoons. They're works of art that challenge us and inspire us. And they really stay with you long after the credits have rolled.
They really do.
And that's why Spirited Away continues to be celebrated and studied, by film critics and animation enthusiasts alike. It's a film that rewards multiple viewings. You see new layers of meaning and complexity each time you watch it.
It's true. It's like peeling back the layers of an onion.
It really is. And I think it goes back to that idea of Ma, the emptiness that allows for so much reflection and interpretation. It's not a film that spoon feeds you the answers. It invites you to engage with it on your own terms and draw your own conclusions.
Absolutely.
Which brings me to a question that's been lingering in my mind throughout this entire deep dive. Could embracing Ma, this concept of emptiness, actually lead to a more profound experience of life?
That's a really interesting question. And it's something I think each of us has to grapple with on our own terms. Could creating space for stillness and silence in our lives, even in small ways, could that open us up to new possibilities, new perspectives, a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us? It's certainly something worth exploring.
Yeah, it's a challenge worth considering, isn't it? To
Yeah.
find that balance between the busyness of everyday life and those precious moments of quiet contemplation.
Yeah.
Well, if you haven't already seen Spirited Away, I can't recommend it enough. Seek it out, immerse yourself in its world, and pay attention to those subtle details, those moments of quiet, and the profound truths that lie hidden beneath the surface. You might be surprised at what you discover.
You really might. And who knows, you might even find yourself embracing a little bit of Ma in your own life.
That's it for our deep dive into Spirited Away. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, happy viewing.